Well, let me take, for example, advice I might give to you alluded to it earlier, but how important form is, right? And advice I would give to a male coming in the gym would absolutely be form is really important. We need to set these habits now.
Yeah.
Because I see too many guys who want to come in and they want to kind of ego lift and they want to lift more than what they can with the right form, what they can safely. And they develop these really bad habits and it's really bad for the long term. So I might caution them to say, hey, maybe you need to drop it down a level and be patient with it and let the weight come as the form improves and form over everything. Whereas, it might be different with women where a lot of times their form is really good and and they're more coachable too a lot of times. So you're able to coach them into really good form and really early on, but then they don't want to push themselves. They're too afraid to maybe grab a little bit more weight and push themselves when in reality that's the stimulus that they need in order to build muscle.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. We have the percent. Let's just say the percentage is higher than women by far. That it's harder sometimes to get men to focus on form.
Yeah,
because they want to ego lift, and a lot of times, as we know, correcting form, 9 times out of 10 means you're going to have to drop the weight. I mean, I trying to think what the one time would be, but just to not make it 100%, most of the time people have to drop their weight to do good form. And guys hate that, especially if they've come in from outside the gym and lifting a while. There's some individuals I just cannot break, no matter how many times I tell them, and then they get injured, and then finally they'll be like, you were right, and then sometimes it takes a few injuries, because they're ego lifting and they get injured. It's usually the shoulder, and they get tired of being injured, and then they start listening, and then suddenly here's the other thing I always say: listen, if you correct your form now, you're going to actually lift more down the road. Okay? So there's a reason the form is there. There's no way when I was in my 40s, if I had used the form I was lifting there, that I could lift what I'm lifting now. I'd be injured so many times. To lift the weight I'm lifting now, you have to be embracing form as much as possible. And I'm still working on it. I still work on my form. It's something I will never stop doing, is working on my form, because there's always someone who has better form than you. So, but I have just enough form to make sure that, I'm not going to get injured, right? So now my form is to the point where I am just trying to get a little heavier bench. But, then you have the flip side of that. The majority of women pick up form very quickly, because they're not in their ego lifting. They listen, and they start seeing results, sometimes fairly quickly, especially if they're in their 20s and 30s. 6 months at it, their body's changing, and they have good form. And I think of one particular thing. We talk about the tele extensions a lot, which is a rather unknown exercise in the industry. But sometimes I have trouble getting the guys to do that correctly. And we both know Lexi. One day she was doing them, and they were perfect. And I filmed it and posted. I said, guys, this is how you do the exercise. Because it was a perfect tele, and because women tend to, they focus on the form, because that's what's important to them. They're detail-oriented gender, and men are just I want to throw as much weight up as I can. Now the men that I've trained that have started focusing on form, I think of, Dave, who just did 275. That's a big deal. When I came in, doing 205 was a big deal. And that was 2.5 years ago. 205, 215 was where he was at. He went through a series of injuries, and now he just focuses on form so religiously. And he did 275 recently on the bench, and he got up and he goes, you know what? You're right. It feels just as good that I'm not injured. I was like, and he's just a little bit older than me. So, yeah, that's a primary difference between, this has to do with the gender, and the two genders.
Yep.
I don't know what a thee or a they, how they respond, but